If you've received raises and your life hasn't changed, the problem isn't your employer. Have you ever gotten a raise and felt that quiet surge of relief? Not excitement exactly, more like the feeling that something had finally been corrected. The bank balance looked better, you could breathe a little. For a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months, it felt like things were moving in the right direction. Then something happened, or rather, nothing happened. The stress didn't go away. The month still felt tight by the end. The sense of being stuck persisted, almost like it had migrated into your new salary and made itself at home there too. So you did what makes sense. You figured the raise just wasn't big enough. You told yourself the next one would matter more. Maybe a promotion, maybe a new job entirely. And that logic feels completely reasonable because if more money is the problem, then more money should be the solution. But here's the question that doesn't get asked often enough. If raises fix financial problems, why do so many people who earn considerably more than they did 5 years ago still feel the same way they always did? Same low-level stress, same end-of-month tension, same vague sense that they should be further along by now. You're not lazy, you're not careless, you probably care quite a bit about money, which is part of why the frustration is so specific. The answer isn't that you're doing something dramatically wrong. It's that you're fighting two forces at once, and most people only ever see one of them. A raise feels like progress, and in one narrow sense, it is. More money coming in is objectively better than less, but what most people don't account for is what happens next, because what happens next is almost always the same thing. Your brain quietly upgrades its definition of normal. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't even feel like a decision. It feels earned. You were making do with less before, and now you don't have to. So the apartment gets slightly better. Not extravagant, just better. The car gets slightly newer. The streaming subscriptions go from 2 to 4 because they're each only a few dollars a month. The gym that was too expensive becomes reasonable. The restaurants shift one tier up. Weekend trips that felt indulgent start to feel like something you've worked hard enough to afford. None of it seems reckless. That's the point. Every individual upgrade is completely defensible. Take a real example. Someone earns more and decides to move apartments. Their old place was fine, but the new one is only $300 more per month. Reasonable. Then the longer commute from the old neighborhood is gone, so they cancel the monthly transit pass. Also reasonable. But the new neighborhood has better restaurants, so the food budget drifts upward. Also reasonable. Each decision makes sense on its own. Added together, the raise is gone before they ever consciously spent it. Here's the part that's worth sitting with. A raise increases comfort faster than it increases freedom. Comfort feels good immediately, freedom changes your life over years, and those two things are not the same, even though they can look identical from the outside. Most raises upgrade your lifestyle. Very few upgrade your future. When income rises without structure, lifestyle rises with it. That can look and feel like growth. It's usually just expansion of expenses. There are real forces working against you that have nothing to do with your choices, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. Inflation. If your salary increases by 4% and your cost of living increases by 4%, you haven't moved forward. You've maintained position. Groceries cost more than they did 2 years ago. Rent in most markets drifts upward regardless of whether your circumstances change. Insurance premiums adjust. Utilities follow their own trajectory. A raise that feels like a 10% gain on paper might only represent 3 or 4% of real purchasing power gain after the cost of living catches up. That's not pessimism. That's what the numbers often look like in practice. Like your raise doesn't always beat inflation. Sometimes it just keeps you from falling behind. And keeping up is not the same as getting ahead. The environment trap. Your environment shapes financial behavior in ways that don't announce themselves. If everyone around you upgrades when they earn more, that becomes your unconscious reference point. Not because you're weak or impressionable, but because you're human. We anchor to what feels normal in our circle. That's not vanity. It's how humans orient themselves socially. When coworkers start driving newer cars after promotions, that becomes an acceptable outcome. When friends move to nicer neighborhoods, that becomes the baseline expectation. When your peer group's baseline shifts, yours shifts with it, often before you've consciously noticed. And once something feels normal, it stops feeling optional. System drift. As income rises, systems around you expand automatically. Taxes increase, expectations from family or peers can increase. Lifestyle conveniences that once felt like treats become standard. Recurring services multiply, software, delivery, subscriptions, memberships. None of these feel aggressive individually. Together, they absorb the raise the same way. But here's the critical point, and it matters. Understanding these forces is not the same as being helpless against them. They exist. You cannot eliminate them, but they are only half the story. The internal force is what actually determines whether a raise changes your life. External forces create resistance. Internal forces decide direction. And direction is the only thing that moves you forward. Think of it like a ship's anchor. When you reach a new level of comfort for the first time, that comfort gets dropped to the ocean floor as your new minimum. The apartment you celebrated when you moved in becomes, within 2 years, the worst you'd accept. The car that felt like success becomes ordinary in 18 months. What started as a reward becomes a floor. And that's the problem with anchors. They don't just hold you in place in the moment. They define the perimeter of your future movement. Every raise that comes after doesn't build wealth. It maintains the anchor. It protects the floor. You're not building upward. You're reinforcing the ground you're standing on, so it doesn't sink. If you don't have rules for what happens to new income, the money goes wherever your existing habits send it. That's not a personal failing. Habits are efficient. They process decisions automatically so you don't have to spend energy on them. The problem is that a habit optimized for your previous income level will spend a raise just as efficiently as it spent everything that came before it. There's a concept in behavioral psychology that James Clear articulated well in Atomic Habits. Your habits are not just behaviors, they're expressions of identity. You don't just do things, you become someone who does those things. And the person you become determines what your money does over time. If your identity is someone who invests automatically, you invest automatically. If your identity is someone who earns a raise and celebrates by upgrading something, you upgrade something. Neither of those feels like a major decision in the moment, but repeated over years, one identity builds net worth and the other maintains comfort. If raises don't create freedom on their own, what does? 3 rules. None of them are exciting. All of them work. Rule 1, lock lifestyle before income grows. When you get a raise, don't change anything for 60 to 90 days. Let the money land and sit without acting on it. This isn't deprivation. It's creating distance between earning and spending, because that distance is where clarity lives. Rule 2, invest the raise before you feel it. Set up automatic investment contributions that increase alongside your salary before the additional money ever arrives in your checking account. This isn't just about the math of compound growth. Automation removes the decision from the emotional moment and puts it into the structure where it runs without requiring willpower each month. Rule 3, build margin, not image. Margin means options. Options mean freedom. A nicer car does not create options. A larger apartment does not create options. They create comfort, which is genuinely pleasant, but they do not create the ability to make different choices when you need to. Having 6 months of expenses in reserve does. None of those things are visible. Nobody sees your net worth or your investment account, but they change what your life can look like 5 years from now in ways that a better car simply cannot. This isn't about frugality as a virtue. It's about understanding what freedom actually requires structurally and choosing that over the appearance of it. You don't need a bigger raise. You need a stronger system. Inflation will continue. Culture will push upgrades. Comparison won't disappear. External pressure is constant, but with a solid internal structure, Those forces stop deciding your outcome. They become friction, not fate. Financial progress doesn't begin with earning more. It begins with your first real buffer, the point where life stops being fully reactive. Saving your first $10,000 isn't about the number, it's about creating space. It's about not stressing over every small expense and being able to plan your future with clarity and confidence. In the next video, I'll show you exactly what to do in the first 24 hours after you get paid. Click on the screen and watch it now. Do the boring stuff. It works.